Myself and Aldo, we've come out to Africa for Veterans for Wildlife as ambassadors to essentially visit a lot of the projects that are going on in South Africa at the moment. See, the wildlife here in Africa is unique, it's special to the planet, not just the continent, and it's on a huge decline due to poaching. Really a fact-finding mission, but also one that involves relationship building, meeting people, building that sort of goodwill feeling between the charity and the many different either APU units or projects that are out here designed or formed to help the conservation of the wildlife and the environment.
This is the time now, this is why we're here specifically, is to meet Dr. Tanya Baber, is to find out exactly how to take these biopsies from the animals, and in some cases there are only 3 subspecies of rhino that we'll be hopefully getting to get a bit closer with. But the idea is that we can start to take biopsies from rhino and other endangered animals across Africa, which will be almost like a seed bank of DNA and stem cells.
Try and get in a little bit closer because we want to make sure that this is a one-shot, one sample sort of effort.
So the big plan for Foxy and I today is to get our hands on with Tanya and find out exactly what they're wanting to do and what skills we can, if we can, impart on to them and their team. But basically we're in the process of practicing how to take a biopsy using the dart gun. But we're out in open savannah. It's very difficult to actually get close to the zebra that we're sort of trying to practice on. So I think we're going to have to move into the bush.
Who are we here today to meet?
The Black Mambas.
Black Mambas
are
are
an APU unit at Olifants West.
And they walk around all the perimeter fences here, and they're the first line of reaction, and they send information back up to Craig, who sends all the guys out.
And here they are.
Hi, yeah. How you doing, Aldo?
Hey.
Pleased to meet you, Joy.
We went and did a fence line patrol. It was about, what would we do, 15k?
Yeah, about that.
About 15 kilometres. And what they're essentially looking for is any sort of incursions that have happened, so cut fence lines, any spore that they pick up on that perimeter track. They're a really committed bunch of girls, they're really brave, they do these patrols in pairs, unarmed, just with a radio. And yeah, they're very sort of motivated, they're very aware of the good work that they're doing, and they also go back to their communities and feed back how important it is to be aware and protective of the wildlife in Africa.
They're out there patrolling along these fence lines with no weapons, and they were telling us when we were out in patrol, in fact they showed us the tree that they got basically charged by a buffalo.
You were running around the tree.
Could you
And
climb?
screaming.
Which way did you run?
This way.
The veterans get a hell of a lot out of it. They get focus back, they get identity, they get satisfaction.
Taking on veterans who are skilled and who are at the top of their game and bringing them out to Africa for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to be able to impart their knowledge onto the parks and the anti-poaching units who are out on the ground, which in turn empowers them and gives them motivation and makes them drive and maybe want to achieve more when they go back home.
With decent training, backed up with decent disciplinary training with regard to, you know, what time you turn up and stuff like that, the basics of military lifestyle, you have a fundamental building block to then move on to what essentially we're going to look at now, which is like live firing in the bush, which is a little more complicated. There's, you know, all the undergrowth, all the vegetation, which means you can't see where your oppo is, your buddy, like Aldo was with me. So you have to be very situationally aware about where everyone is, who you're shooting at, what you're shooting at, and essentially you've got to look at the ground around you.
It's been a long time since I've done that, but it's an amazing facility, really, really good. The sun is good, but I mean that's real life.
Bala, yes.
There's no point in counting any of mine.
From what I can see here is it's a great establishment, it's a well-trained guys. Their only real issue is funding, getting the money to get the decent kit, because essentially morale, being happy, gives you good rangers, and then the good rangers go out there and they look after the wildlife, and we're all happy.
Fox and I are just packing up our kit just now. We're just about to go into the field with the rangers on an overnight ranger patrol, so we're going to be in the bush for the next 24 hours or so. they're out there in the middle of this with lions, you know, and rhinos and elephants, and sometimes they're only feet away from it.
Yeah, you've got leopards out here, buffalo, basically everything that is considered very dangerous. It's like a new age Jurassic Park, especially when towards the end of that patrol we had a couple of rhino that one we saw was 20 metres away, facing right at us, coming towards us, and then we sort of backed away from that one, whether it was the same one again a bit later, but it was crashing around, almost smelling us. It felt like it was coming for us. It wasn't, because it didn't know where we were, but it was pretty inquisitive, and it gets the heart race going. It's almost, I know, it's reminiscent of getting into a gunfight, sort of.
Poachers come in 360, the watering hole, find the tracks and then follow out. That's how they find the rhino. And that's what these guys are doing as well. They'll come in 360 it, find the tracks and follow it.
The APU guys have just picked up tracks of the rhino that was drinking there last night. So we're going to go and track that animal and see if we can catch up with it.
It's just pointed out when we're walking.
Okay.
There's a flat sole imprint there, which is what they were saying is the typical trainer, like a Converse trainer that's used by poachers. Come over from Mozambique, that's the type of trainer they use.
Really hard to track because it doesn't leave much of an indent, and obviously the ground here is quite hard. I mean, I'm barely leaving an indent in big shoes. So this is what the anti-poaching units have to look for. And it's very difficult, but you can, when you concentrate, pick up bits, but you've got to be careful not to contaminate the area with your own, which will make the tracking more difficult.
And you must also change your trackers. It's a hard concentration. About an hour you must put someone else on the spoor because you start to lose it.
Yeah, it's like having a point man. If you're point man or the lead scout, after about an hour, you're just rinsed, just tired,
mentally drained.
Not only is the heat, but also concentrating.
These guys do an incredible job out here in South Africa. It's easy to view it all from our armchair, but it's not until you get out here that you realise that it's a completely different ball game.
We'll wait that side down 360 around because the wind is like that. So then we'll just wait. If there's a rhino that side, we'll go around, otherwise we'll go from here.
Okay. Foxy and I were just walking through and my heart's like thumping. There's a huge rhino just about 20 feet in front of us, just literally charged this way and then legged it that way. That was close.
But this is basically a well-established, what we would call an OP, they call it a hide. It's the frontline intelligence gathering. You're there listening and looking at what's coming into the reserve and going out of the reserve. And if they're in the right place, they'll pick up the right information.
As this is well known, Mozambique's just over there, so this is one of the main corridors for them to come in and hit the rhino.
The key and essential part of working in an OP or a hide is having a routine and sticking to it. It's boring and monotonous, it's not glamorous, it's mundane, but you're just waiting for all the key information to literally come past you.
It's a very dangerous job. It is also not as romanticized as everybody thinks it is. It's actually very routinely job, and it's hard work. It's away from the house. There's rangers, they stay here for a month and end without seeing their families. So they must be dedicated to make a success.
The guys are out on the ground 5 days at a time, which is tough in this heat, rationing their water, rationing their food, listening, staying awake. Between two of them, they run a routine for 5 days. That's fucking hard work.
Yeah. But you know, there's nothing worse though when you're on the ground somewhere and you know you're being undermined at the top by bureaucracy and red tape, and it's actually stopping you doing your job.
The problem of the poaching issue in South Africa is the dynamics of the country and the geography. You haven't just got one national park, you've got lots of private reserves. Each one has their own APU units. Some of them talk to each other, some of them don't. And the issue arises in the breakdown in communications between anti-poaching units. So they can't keep track of where the rhino are because they don't talk to each other. They don't know where the poachers are going because they can't track into other people's property. So essentially, as with everything in life, if you don't communicate, you don't win.
The rangers at Brentwood now have just pointed out that they've on the skyline, can you see them? There's vultures
2 or 3 vultures over there, and so they've said this. They think there's a carcass over there at some point.
9 shots reported, and then 3 or 4 days later we found this carcass.
To see something so majestic die for something that is just made up just seems pointless. It seems sad. It's extremely sad.
A 5-minute drive from where the carcass was that we just saw. And there's a mother and a baby calf rhino, white rhino here. So we're pretty privileged to be this close, I think.
Like the rangers, they see these rhinos every day, and you start to know which one by looking at the horns and the ears is which one, and then suddenly one gets shot and you don't see it there anymore. And if you look after that thing every day of your life, it's not good for them as well.
I understand the miracle.
Yeah.
No one ever can take that away. If you think about 6 years back and now, we can't lose this fight. We came far. We must get more people involved. We must save more animals. We must get more experts on this, you know. And for me, that's the important thing. People that have skills, like Wildlife for Veterans, a willing heart, willing hands.
They're almost fully grown.
Look at that. Look, Foxy.
Foxy, why don't you show us how brave you are and go and stand next to it?
You go.
So if they do, we stayed in the field with, stop worrying, you're the one that's panicked. Where do we go if these charge?
No, I don't think they will charge. Thank God that there's layers of people fighting very hard to try and save these animals. That's why the awareness, stopping the demand. You have to use all the tools in the toolbox.
Definitely. We're coming to the end of 2 days with Care for Wild Africa. It's been an amazing experience, also very emotional. I mean, we've got to meet Jemu, who was a calf.
Yeah, the calf that Foxy and I met this morning was the calf of the female rhino that was poached in the Greater Kruger Park that Foxy and I had the opportunity to see when we were on patrol, and to see, you know, we were told the story there that when that rhino was shot, the calf was with her side for about 4 days.
Yeah, that was about right, yeah. 4 days she'd stuck by her mother's side even though she was dead, due to loneliness, trauma, God knows what else goes with that sort of experience. And yeah, she was picked up and delivered here, where the staff and volunteers tirelessly work to make their lives a little bit more bearable. So it's yeah, it's been an unbelievable experience, like I've already said, but it's also been a really emotional one. And she's not the only calf that's here either. There's quite a few.
These little babies in here were found with axe wounds on the back.
Right,
Look.
Do they like that?
Yes.
There you are. You got that.
Just letting the baby rhinos get used to us. That's where Veterans for Wildlife come in to play here, is that, you know, we're dealing with as much of the charities on the ground are dealing with the war on rhinos at the minute, and wildlife crime generally, but also Veterans for Wildlife are taking veterans from the UK and other countries and giving them focus and drive and a goal, and they're coming out here and they've been able to work with these animals, and they've got a lot of skills, or whether they're training up APUs, not specifically going out on the ground, but, you know, imparting their knowledge, whether it's engineering or whether it's medical training or whether it's firearms training. And that is really important. It's twofold for Veterans for Wildlife. So it's about the veterans, and it's about imparting knowledge and about helping the greater cause of wildlife conservation in South Africa.